Hi, I'm Magnus. This is my new Workmate. Keep watching to see how I made it and also what it's capable of. I have an old Workmate that has seen better days, but the base was still okay and I figured that it would be fun to make some upgrades to it and put it back to use. So, Workmate hack it is! I started with some simple sketches, the old-fashioned way. I did this to make sure I covered as many items on my wishlist as possible. I wanted an MFT-ish style top with several clamping options. I also wanted some kind of tool tray for space to put things when I was working on a project. Last but not least, I wanted the work surface to be a little bit higher to make it a little bit more ergonomic. I used 18mm Baltic birch plywood for the top to make it sturdy enough yet still somewhat lightweight. I started with breaking down the sheet goods according to my cut list. First I ripped all the pieces to correct width and then cutting up to length. And as always, I dummy proof every piece with some masking tape with notes. When all the pieces had the correct size and was properly marked, I began to sort them and try them out to make sure that I had all the pieces that I need. I was going to use dominoes, and for this I had to set up the machine. For some strange reason, there isn't a setting for a very common 18mm thickness, but this was solved by using the 16mm setting and use 1mm drill bit as a spacer. This worked, but it's just annoying that you had to come up with these kind of workarounds on such an expensive tool. I attached the auxiliary fences to get the correct inset from the edges and made mortises. For the center mortise I had to measure, and I made marks on both pieces at the same time to be sure that they will match up. The wide vise in my mobile workbench is really handy in cases like this. If you want to know more about it, just click the link in the description below. I added glue, dominoes, and with a gentle touch I got all the pieces in place and added some clamps before I set it aside for the glue to cure. Then it was time for the second one to go through the same process. When the two top pieces were all glued and clamped, I started to disassemble the leg structure. Some of the brackets were a little bit out of shape and needed some correction in order to work properly. After the glue has cured, it was time to get rid of the glue squeeze out with a chisel and give it a light sanding. I then started to measure on the bottom side of the two tabletops for the mounting of both the fixed piece as well as the sliding piece. At the same time I also marked where I should cut some recesses for both the cranks that operate the clamping mechanism of the table and also some tool holders. The tabletop piece that we're going to move had to be mounted in such a way it was allowed to be angled a bit. I solved this by using some square washers with oversized holes. I wanted the square washers to be flush with the underside, so I routed some recesses. I modified these square washers with some countersunk holes in order to be able to mount them on the underside of the sliding table top piece. Then it was time for some jigsaw magic and create the recesses for the tool holders and also the recesses to make room to operate the cranks. And then some fine tuning with the rasp. All edges were then rounded off with a 4mm radius round off a bit. To add functionality to the Workmate, I rounded some V-grooves in the jaws to make it possible to clamp round stock as well. It doesn't need to be a large groove in order to get this feature, and it will probably come in handy in the future. The next step was to create that MFT style pattern in the top, and for that I used my LR32 system. This can easily be done just by measuring carefully and drill the holes with the drill, but with the LR32 system I got the accuracy in the pattern really easy. Because I didn't have any 20mm router bit with complete cutting edge at the bottom, I had to make it in two passes. First I threw a hole with a smaller router bit and then I came back with a 20mm bit to finish the holes. The 20mm router bit was a bit dull, which gave the holes a burnt look to it. That meant that they looked laser cut. How cool is that? I count that as a plus. Before assembly, I also gave the two stretchers a coat of paint in an accent color. The assembly was quite an easygoing process. Attaching the top pieces were a bit tricky due to lack of space, but finally I got them in place. So, what can this do then? Well, first of all, ergonomics. The height is better. And then we have the surface, which is bigger than before, in both directions. And we still have the clamping mechanism that can be operated with the cranks here. The device works just like normal. We can tighten a piece and work with it. The V-grooves can be used to clamp front pieces, and the same is also true for the horizontal grooves. You can also clamp in these small pieces in the middle, so you get the clamping options around the whole surface. It also has some tool holders for the drill, one at each side, and also some additional storage for, let's say, clamps. I made an MFT pattern on the top, both the standard holes, also an extra row in between, half the distance for the other one. The MFT top can be used in several different ways. Just use a clamp to hold things down, or if you prefer, you can use these kind of dogs, either like this, and then you use the fastener like that. That one also works with oddly shaped pieces like this, like that. So the clamping options are endless with this table. So that's my new Workmate. And last but not least, it's easy to fold. Thanks for watching. See you next time.